And thanks, Echo. So it made me think like, what has good question enabled me personally to do? And I like to show 3 images because I feel like they capture quite nicely the value of questions for me. So the first one is a well. I feel like a good question helps. It's like lowering, a bucket into a well, and then you don't know what's in there. It could be like mud or whatever, or clean water or like fresh water. But when you lower it, you draw out kind of like insights or value that otherwise remain hidden or like unseen, right? So it's like you're drawing out a well of knowledge or well of like fears or well of whatever from this well with your bucket of question, with your question as a bucket. So that's the first thing. And that could happen with yourself or with others as well. The second one is that more than you think, actually, questions help build bridges. They not only like bring new knowledge and all that stuff, but they also help bridge you with someone else. So it's like when you want to connect with someone and you inquire into their lives, into what they're interested in their interests or like their gaps or their fears, it actually builds that bridge. So questions not only give you answers, they also help build connections, which is I realized like, oh yeah, okay, that's actually really interesting in our students, in my friends, in like strangers, etc., etc. The third one as well is that, so this is a nice quote and by Leonard Cohen. It's part of like a poetry. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So when you put yourself in a mode of like inquisition or like just curiosity, it shows humility. So it also shows that this is something that I'm struggling with. This is something I'm also asking myself. It allows you to kind of like reveal your own limitations, which allows you to be open to other people's perspective as well. So it's like it's this kind of like realization that if I ask questions, I invite others to support me. I reveal my own limitations, which enables myself and others to actually grow. So this is like 3 key points of why, for me, questions are important. How I've been exploring some questions. So this is funny because like last night, Echo just said, okay, share something. And then I looked at my library of my recent books that I've purchased. And these are the recent books. And the theme was like questions, right? So there's the first one, good leaders ask great questions. Questions that are the answers in my Kindle. So leading with questions. And then I have a few workbooks that are all questions. So Q&A, daily Q&As. It's like check in with yourself. And then like how one question a day to make you smarter, one question a day to generate mindfulness. And then this is like how successful people think. It's a workbook with questions. And then this is like this one is becoming from Michelle Obama, and it's just like a journal question. Couples workbook, which couples ask questions. And then how to decide, which is like all just questions. And then this one is from the School of Life, Who Am I, which is like a list of questions. So it just tells you like what I've been kind of like obsessing with, which is actually asking myself a lot of questions. And it made me think like, oh, interesting. I didn't see this pattern before. And now I'm seeing like, okay, it's a theme of my life recently, like questioning. And when I realized it, it's like, I love to read, but in the last 3 or 4 years, I feel that it's good to also spend time to unpack your own existing beliefs and knowledge already, because when you're trying to absorb a lot of things, you don't process it a lot. So I feel that doing journals and workbooks and questions towards yourself help you unlock more depth than you can imagine. And just answering these books, it's been such a great activity for me to do that. So what I've been doing is reading about it. So like the theory behind questions, asking myself questions, and also asking others questions. So we do that a lot in Hyper Island, where we create check-in questions, reflection questions, and all that stuff. And before I kind of like open up with a question for all of us as well, this is what I learned so far. in terms of how I kind of like start to see an anatomy of a good question. And these are just the components to dive deeper into it. And of course, like it could change depending on the situation. So there's the intent. What's your goal? Is it to build connection, to discover something, to get help, to inspire action? There's the context. So you can't just like, randomly just ask a question. You have to connect it to prior experience or a content that you want to bring back. For example, when we do check-ins and check-outs, we actually design these questions. There's the depth. What depth do you want to go deep in? So do you want to empower self-reflection? Normally, good questions allow you to empower, to self-reflect. Sometimes good questions are not the easiest to answer, just like, what are your biggest fears? It takes a while for you to understand that. And then also the time to answer, right? How long do you want them to spend in the question? Is it like a 30-second one, or 1 day, or like 1 year? You could have a question that's really fundamental that you could spend a year thinking about it. And then of course the construct, like what vibe do you want to create, the wording, timing. You can't go back to back too many questions or too little, because you might look uninterested, or too much, you might feel like interrogating someone. And then also how appropriate it is at the certain context. Like you have to build that empathy within your questioning as well. So yeah, that's mainly it. Just like, to open up the topic of like the power of questions. How are we questioning ourselves in a day-to-day without going too much also into, like overthinking? And then also how questions can steer good conversations. So I have some questions for the room, and of course let's try to like just do a chit chat. So just 3 ones, and anyone can answer. We can just do a reel, and if you want to react or also comment on other things or have your own questions, feel free. But just 3 questions from me. Like what are the barriers from inquisition, like normally, that you think we have or you have? What type of questions have you been asking yourself lately? And also, I shared what the difficult question that I was faced in the last years that really transformed me. Did you have any in your life as well? Like what difficult questions have you faced that impacted your life? And yeah, let's have a little chat about it. Anyone wants to unmute and just share? I'll send these on the chat as well. Oh, the chat is. I'll put it on chat so that you can all see, and then I'll stop sharing my screen. I didn't see the chat was busy.